Hey and welcome to Neverwinter with Aragon. So in this video I want to cover my Module 32 Rogue Whisperknife build. This will go through everything you need to know to set it up for yourself and how to actually play the cast with the right powers and rotations. In combat with all the gear bonuses, while also being in a party with support effects, the usual ones people use at endgame, you will get all of your damage stats maxed out. Just keep in mind, this is indeed using the highest endgame level gear. You can absolutely use alternatives, you just need to go for whatever gives you the most amount of damage stats, along with, in some cases, damage output. So the first section we'll jump to is our single target power setup. And boss fights are usually the most important place to have high damage output. So make sure you understand what to do. In general, you use these abilities, and then you have this rotation, depending if you have tacticians yet or not. This is a mount insignia bonus, which gives you a ton of cooldown, allowing you to use your abilities a second time within 10 seconds. While in an optimized group, you're going to do a thing called artifact calls, where you will cast your artifact along with everybody else, and then your abilities will deal 4 times more damage within 10 seconds. So optimizing your rotation for this is crucial. I will go through this slowly at first, but you first want to make sure you have Disheartening Strike on your target. Then you're going to cast your artifact as soon as it is called. You're going to enter stealth, use Shadow Strike, Lashing Blade, Impact Shot, your belt item, your mount power, entering stealth, your daily power, and then back into Shadow Strike, Lashing Blade, and Impact Shot. And you can see that's the rotation here. Without tacticians, you will not be able to cast your encounter powers a second time within 10 seconds. Again, you will need to learn to perform this rotation really quickly, so it's all done within the 10 seconds as you cast your artifact. So again, make sure the dot's up. Use the artifact, stealth, Shadow Strike, Lashing Blade, Impact Shot, belt item, mount power, stealth, daily power, Shadow Strike, Lashing Blade, Impact Shot. All within 10 seconds, where your damage will be like 4 times as normal. People come to me and wonder why their damage sucks, and it's usually down to them not optimizing their rotation for the artifact call. There are some small things you can switch around, like instead of Impact Shot, you could use Smoke Bomb. This is particularly useful in the new trial when you need to be fighting the mobs. This daze effect will also cause them to not be able to use any damage abilities against you, so you have that extra protection while this is up. Additionally, instead of dagger threat, you can use advantageous position when killing groups of enemies to ensure you have combat advantage against them. And this gives you a damage boost equal to your combat advantage stat. And with this build in combat, you will get that to 120% with an optimized group. More about that later. So the next section we jump to is multi-target. Here you need to have a different setup, so it's usually best to just use an entirely different loadout here, switching when you're at a campfire. The rotation that you will do with this is dependent on your stealth and shadowy opportunity. You will enter stealth and use Blade Flurry, and you will not use it a second time because you will want to use stealth within 5 seconds. So you enter stealth, you use that Blade Flurry, and then you can use Path of the Blades and Smoke Bomb. Then you can enter stealth and use Blade Flurry again, and you simply repeat like that. When you have nothing to cast and you're waiting on your stealth to come back, you simply just use some at-will attacks, and you deal a serious amount of multi-target damage with this. Your daily power, you generally use Whirlwind of Blades, and again, make sure you're using it while you're in stealth to get combat advantage against everything. This again means you're dealing your combat advantage stat against all those targets. Similarly, your mount power, you will want to use it when you're in stealth, so it also gets the combat advantage damage. And that's it. So now we'll talk a little bit about our stats here. Out of combat, but with buff food, we're looking at this. And you can see at the end of the document how you get all of these stats maxed out. These are all the different bonuses. Some come from gear, enchantments, companions that you and other people in your team use, auras. These are all things you need to count for when building up your character for the end game level. Even if you're still progressing, it's a good thing to optimize your build to be able to fit into those endgame groups. So let's jump to gear. What do you want to be using to get those stats? Well, as per the document, it's all listed here where you're getting it. The focus again is to give you gear pieces that gives you high item level, but on top of that, as many damage stats as possible. These are the 5 primary stats here. So our headpiece is giving 7% combat advantage. The chest piece is giving a total of 13% stats. The arms, 12% stats. Boots are giving 15% stats. And that's the common trend throughout all the gear pieces that you will want to be using. You may not be able to get all of this stuff until you're already at the end game level and being able to actually do these master trials. So you will need to look for alternative pieces that are accessible to you. And the best way is to look in collections here. It lists all of those items and where you can get them, and you simply look at the description. How many stats is that giving me? And so is it better than something I already have? Ratings have a maximum. Do not put them in red where you're then wasting the ratings. They will display green when they're at their maximum. You don't necessarily need them on green as seen here, but that's just the maximum it can be. That's what you see in the total stats. The maximum is 120%. You can't go higher, but it's also like if you're 1%, 2% lower, that doesn't mean you can't do good damage. You don't gain any special bonus for getting your stats green. It's simply a display of this is the maximum value. You cannot get more. Moving on to the next section, we have gear modifications. These are going to be our armor kits as you see here. You'll get them through crafting or just from the auction house, and they give you some extra ratings which are going to help give these total stats. The neck, rings and waist all have these combat advantage jewels. As for then your enchantments, these offensive ones are going to help give us these ratings to give us these total amounts. Again, make sure you're not getting any stats in red. Defense doesn't really matter, you can just have some spare enchantments here, but garnets would be optimal for defense, and one in utility for forte. Overloads I would only use in top level content where you're min-maxing your damage matters. 5% damage here and 10% stats here. The combat enchantment, that's the lightning flash, accuracy, critical strike, coming from your Menzoberranzan campaign, but there is a new alternative, the swift synergy. This can be useful and does give a little bit more item level, but it requires a party and a different setup of stats. It gives the same amount of stats just in a different place. So if we wanted to make sure we still had 90% critical strike, removing this nearly 11%, we would have to find that somewhere else. And that's going to be the same for your accuracy, and then you need to compensate for having too much combat advantage and crit severity, and I'm just not going to build around it. Most of you are just going to have the lightning flash anyway, and it's probably cheaper. For the artifacts, we're simply going with ones that have 2600 item level. Preferably we have ones that give us ratings that are going to contribute to damage, unlike this one. So just go with what you have. It's listed in the document here where those specific ones come from, but you don't exactly need these ones. You can check the collections for alternatives. For your campaign boons here, you're simply taking the ones that give you damage stats. On the top level, make sure you're getting the forte, action point gain and recharge speed. For master boons, bloodlust, blessed advantage, life lessons, and then you can get enhanced application and blessed resilience for some more survivability. But you will need a lot of boon points for those. For the guild stronghold, we go with the critical strike, defense, and revive sickness. For our companion equipment, and also what companion are we summoning, well, it's usually going to be a team support one. In this case, we have Portobello da Vinci to give everybody 3.5% power and combat advantage. You can check my companion document here, which lists the other team support companions. This is what people regularly use at the endgame level, especially Tutor, Flapjack, and Portobello, to help everybody cap their stats. This companion equipment can be pretty hard to obtain. I just got it from the auction house, but it's displayed here in the collections and where to get it. The actual bonuses is Potent Precision for critical severity, Bigger They Are from Minsk for the damage, Bitiri for the boss damage, Neverwinter Night for the damage, Tamed Raptor for the power for you and your team, and the Wolf for critical severity. On your multi-target power setup, you could switch the Bitiri to Spine Devil and like Minsk over to Face Spider. As for our mounts then, we have Bigby's Hand for combat power, but there's a better one now. From the latest lockbox, we could use Infernal Pounce. It has a little bit more magnitude. We have Heroic Seal for the Forte, you could have Pack Tactics here instead. And for the insignia bonuses themselves, we have 3 for the cooldown to make sure we're getting off that rotation in time. Artificer's Enticement when you cast that artifact, Tactician's Precision when you cast your daily power, and Cavalry's Haste when you cast your mount power, all to ensure that you'll be able to properly do this rotation. Just make sure you have your stealth available for it when the artifact call is called. Then we have Enchanter's Hex, just a little bit of extra damage, and Executioner's Covenant just for the extra stats. You can see listed in the document we have 8 skill insignias, 12 brutality, and then these are the mount callers. Prioritize encounter power damage and crit severity. The rest really don't matter. And here's a list of other single target mount powers which are acceptable to use, and then multi-target ones you could use are like Legendary Flying Carpet, whoops, a typo, but there are many alternatives and I generally wouldn't worry about it. As for the consumables, these are again pretty important to maximize your stats. Sunlord's Gift Elixir, Squash Soup, Flask of Potency, and Ratatouille. This is just guild food. A Flask of Potency you get from crafting in alchemy, or you buy it from the auction house. Squash Soup comes from a lot of different events. Upcoming will be the anniversary event, where you can get more than you ever need of it, and the Sunlord's Gift Elixir simply through the invoking store here. Finally, we have our belt items. You can see my tray here, a Stone of Health, best thing to instantly heal you to full. Owlbear figurine, you can grab this right now due to the Day of the Dungeon Master event from the Wondrous Bazaar, 100,000 Astral Diamonds, or a bit less if you have VIP. A very good deal. It otherwise sells on the Zen market for a few hundred Zen. And finally we have the Awakened Forger's box. Just look up online for a guide how to get it. It's fairly easy. But I do want to quickly mention our ability scores. We have Strength all the way, Dexterity 2 points, and Charisma the rest. The race we have is Wood Elf. This simply gives us our extra 5% critical strike here, but there's no real harm using a different race that also gives you some of these 5 damage stats, like Orc, Gith, Dragonborn, Azamar, etc. Drow can also be very useful for Dark Fire, Renegade for Fairy Fire, but generally healers and tanks will use those. And that is everything for the build. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below and I'll do my best to get back to you. This is again Module 32 with the release of the Soul Collector campaign. If there's another campaign below this, that means we're on Module 33 and you can look out for an updated video. I'll have that in the video description and the pinned comment below. Last thing to mention would be the Assassin path. And honestly guys, it's a lot of fun to play, but it's not really viable right now. Not when you're trying to min-max your damage output for artifact calls. It just kinda got too power creeped. Whisperknife is generally far better than it, in both multi-target and single target. Which is a little bit sad, as Assassin requires a much more melee focused playstyle, so it is more challenging to play. But it just doesn't have that ceiling of damage output that Whisperknife has. It cannot compete in the current meta, so I would not play it. But yes, you could use the exact same build as I have here on Assassin. You just need to have a different rotation, different feat setup. And I have videos in the past which do describe how to play it, and nothing much has really changed since, other than them fixing the bug that Toxic Blades had at one point, which led to it dealing crazy amount of damage. That's about it. Thanks for watching. A special thank you to my channel members, and we'll see you guys around.